Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds, I'm Nerd Steve. Today I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
I'm doing good, and tonight we're going to be talking about D&D Ideas cryptids. This isn't the first time we've explored this particular topic for the Nerdarchy YouTube channel. It's the first time we've done a live chat on it, though.
That is indeed correct.
And so you kind of like helped come up with this idea because we didn't. I don't know if you folks have been paying attention, but on the channel with our regular videos, we've been kind of experimenting with some different things. And if you've been around for a while and you've watched the channel, you've seen like where Nerdarchy's been. Even look through our catalog of videos and see the view counts compared to now. So clearly we feel like we're not resonating with the audience anymore, so we're trying some new stuff. And
Trying to Sometimes you got to shake things up and try something new and see what works. And we enjoy doing this and want to keep doing it. So the only way to do that is to try and shake it up, be more relevant, do things that people might not expect us to do, and see what works, see what sticks.
yeah, so along the lines of cryptids and the holiday season and the winter season, I had done a series of videos over there that are loosely based off some of our previous content that we've done before. And D&D, making Santa's elves in D&D, D&Dizing Santa Claus.
Wait, are you trying to say that Santa Claus and the elves are cryptids?
They could very well be based on some of the information, but also like using Santa Claus's workshop as a dungeon. And then once I was all out of Christmas themed stuff, just moved into straight up winter with the Yetis. And you're like, hey, could we do something talking about the Yetis? And I was like, well, we could. What about cryptids? That would encompass Yetis and Bigfoots and all kinds of stuff.
And many, many, many more. Because
Yeah.
in doing some research for tonight's topic, there's a lot of cryptid information that is out there. And in fact, you know, I've mentioned this before in another live chat and in one of our newsletters, but I actually got a book sometime last year that is monsters and mythical creatures from around the world. And all these things are based on folklore and that kind of stuff. And while some of them are clearly like, all right, this is not a cryptid, a lot of the cryptids that I'm generally familiar with and some of the things that I researched are in here as well. So I'm like, all right, this is definitely a thing to kind of re-reference, if you will. And I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I wonder if you got that when we were kind of looking at like we did at least we did at least 3 on the channel, I
I
believe.
I was able to find 2 in my research prior to the Yeti drop, because we
Oh,
did the Jersey Devil and we did the
yeah.
Squonk.
Oh, you know what? We did Bloody Mary, but it has not seen the light of day yet.
Oh,
Because it was a D&D sponsored a D&D Beyond sponsored video, and they have not been a
okay.
sponsor in a long time, so we haven't done anything with that. So we might revisit that.
So I mean, perhaps that could be something where we pull the audio and try one of the new formats. Could be.
Yeah, could be. We try something with it. But anyway, so needless to say, we really enjoy the concept of cryptids, and I still think they can be cool and unique in your D&D world without just being other monsters, right? I feel like there's things we can draw upon from various cryptids to um kind of spice up our D&D monsters. Especially if you're talking about you want to create a unique creature, right? Because a lot of cryptids, like they're a species of creature, or they're a specific creature, this one, right? And that's where I
Mhm.
think some of the magic can yeah, really come into play in your D&D game. Like the lore behind the Jersey Devil, you could take that and twist that a little bit. And we've done that in a video, so you guys can go check that out on the channel and
Right.
see what we did with that. But there's no reason why you couldn't do that with any other cryptids, or even just use it as inspiration for when you come up with a monster that you want to use, even if it's just like a generic regular old D&D monster. But you then start layering on top of it this lore and this history that sets it apart from other monsters of its ilk, right? This specific one in this specific region.
So I pulled up some some regular, cryptids that, we hadn't talked about before. And I feel some of them I feel you could definitely go in the direction of making this a unique thing, where others I feel could be
Mm.
great as inspiration for like making, be it a new race or a new, creature that isn't unique, and you again bring up the Jersey Devil. I feel that one needs to be handled, with the unique gloves, so that it's not just, oh, this is just any old creature. This needs to
Mm.
be specific lore and specific ways to deal with. But when I look at, something like the chupacabra, like, all right, this is a little bit more than, like, it's not a beast, you know, but it is something that should scare people, you know, whether it's a fae, whether it's a monstrosity, whether it's an aberration, whatever direction you would choose to take something like that, like this could be like an actual menace. And maybe in order to have it be some kind of lore, uh, you know, it only comes around certain times of the year. And maybe it's a migratory creature. Maybe like it literally travels up and down the coast. And oh, well, this time of year it happens to exist in this, this town. So when you travel here, oh, be wary of, summer harvest, or summer walks in the woods, because this creature is, known to be here. But you travel further south, and it's like, no, we see this thing, in the wintertime. So like you could take the concept of, whether you do singular or, a pack of them or what have you, and you make it be unique in adapting it to your fantasy world, so that it's something more than just, oh, well, this is a beast or a monstrosity, oh, it's not any more terrifying than a freaking ant keg. Well, you could make it be that by not having it around all the time, by not having it follow typical patterns, and creating that new lore by having it move around. And that's why, it's not seen all the time.
So, tangentially related, there was a movie that came out last year on Netflix called Chupa.
Uh-huh.
It got a lot of heat and flack because of the name,
Okay.
by people that clearly didn't watch the movie, but because Chupa just means suck, right? Like when you remove all the other, everything else from it. But like if you watch the movie, like you get that they're actually poking fun of the name a little bit, and that
Uh-huh.
it was intentional, but also like it's kind of a good, like it's more of a kids movie, and your kids would very much like Choopy or whatever they end up calling the thing in it, because it's a
I
baby one.
when it came out, I am fairly certain I saw the advertisements. I don't know if I watched it and absolutely just flushed it out of my brain, or if I just haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Um, but I definitely recall seeing the the preview for it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So one of the things when I was poking around, I did find, there's a lot of similarities in, different cryptids across, basically across the world. I mean, obviously you have the Yeti and the Sasquatch, which really, the real difference is just the climate, right? That they're supposed to be found in. But then you have like the Loch Ness monster, um, and Mokil Mumby. I'm totally butchering the frig out of that.
uh,
Uh,
so
and
Mokele Mbebe.
yeah, and Ogopogo. Like they're all very similar, and basically they just look like, um, they all just kind of look like a sauropod dinosaur essentially
Uh,
is the descriptions, but they're all like in very different parts of the world, right? So so that's kind of interesting as well, and that might be something like you can play with in your games, with specific creatures, and why they are similar or the same. Are they the same species? Are they different species? um I feel like you can definitely add some flavor and some lore. And because we're talking about D&D, like they actually have the ability to interact with these creatures. So if you decide to make them more than just combats, then they can learn about them and figure out why maybe some of these similar creatures has been split up, even though they seem very similar or the same or unique and the same. And of
all right,
course,
so
all of those creatures are individuals too.
right. So the Mokale Mbembe, it was one that I had pulled up as well, and one of the cool things about this one is, yes, it is your standard sauropod, brontosaurus, apatosaurus, brachiosaurus. It makes people think the dinosaurs are still around. This one is based out of the Congo in Central Africa. But one of the cool things that I was able to find with this one is while it's an herbivore, it's crap, where is it? I didn't highlight my book. The name literally means one who stops the river, which I thought that was kind of cool. And it's seen more either in the water or, like going back towards the water. But if it sees you, it kind of acts aggressively. It's going to kill you, not because it wants to eat you, but it's that, I guess, territorial maybe, or it just doesn't
It's a
want to be seen.
hippopotamus.
I mean, you could definitely view it, in that
Yeah.
regard as well. So maybe the origination of it had to do with some kind of mutant hippo. But the cool thing is that members of the Bengombe tribe claim to have killed one once, but they died afterwards because they ate the meat and they were supposedly poisoned by it. And then anyone that has seen it and talks about it is believed to die like premature death.
That makes me think of a catoblepus, to be honest with you.
So there is some probably some inspiration for the catoblepus in in
Uh,
this myth, and since these things have been out there for a long time, I can't imagine that a number of our already existing D&D stuff isn't inspired in some way, shape, or form by these things. And then you just like, oh, well, let me put this little twist on it, let me put this little spin so that it kind of becomes something more unique and not just be, oh, well, this is this single solitary thing that you know is in a D&D game once, and once you kill it, it's gone. Catoblepus is a race, a species of creatures that, not just one of them, but I kind of thought that was kind of an interesting aspect of this herbivore that is super aggressive and doesn't doesn't even want you near it or talking about it or what have you. So like you could have some kind of mysticism. I looked at this and I'm like, oh well, maybe uh there is something special about these creatures. Maybe they're extra planar in some kind of thing. Maybe there's like a legitimate powerful order or organization that they literally don't want anyone finding these creatures, and they will come in and exterminate people who are talking about it and doing it and making things look like they're accidents or what have you. And while that's a very conspiracy theory modern-esque kind of thing, there's nothing to say that you couldn't have something like that in a D&D game.
so you had said something that kind of got me thinking. What are they called? The one that stops the river?
Yeah,
There's
one who stops the river.
What is like that? That to me is kind of a fun idea for kind of like an adventure, maybe even a low level
Hmm.
adventure, where well the river gets stopped and they have to figure out what's stopping the river. And this sauropod like dinosaur, maybe it lays across the mouth of a river and creates a natural dam with its body. And in order to get the river flowing again, they have to convince it to move. Maybe they hibernate, maybe they sleep. This is D&D. We're making mystical creatures here, right? So like maybe they have an ability like like a turtle going into their shell that makes them very difficult to harm when they lay across the mouth of the river. Um, and is and so they have to figure out how to wake it up in order to get it to move so the river can be undammed. So
That is absolutely amusing. I love the aspect of the potential for combat that can't be solved with combat. You know, I thoroughly enjoy, um, when it's set up that way.
yeah.
If Josh, if you're watching this, I apologize because sometimes combat needs to be combat. And I had an encounter recently, and I apologize for the tangent, where uh, I had an encounter where the players were surrounded by this like undead horde, and I wanted to do something different. I wanted to try a different mechanic set, and uh, the one player had recently changed characters in the game, and he went from a combat loving barbarian to a I'm gonna talk my way out of everything College of Eloquence bard. And while I knew that they were playing a bard, I didn't have the character sheet. I didn't know what kind of spell selection they had. And they spent 3 rounds like trying every way to just, how do I not be in combat? And I'm like, oh man, like it hurt me as a DM to just constantly be like, nope, sorry, that doesn't work, and half it, it was bad. But I generally love, in a standard situation to present a thing that the players have to use their wits to kind of get out of the situation, as opposed to be like, well, let me just stand over here and kill it.
Yeah. So was it a case of you were really just trying to test out a specific thing in combat and this was going to play out, or was it's not so much that you're opposed to alternate solutions, it's just the solutions he was proposing didn't fit this narration or situation.
Uh, in that particular situation, uh, there was undead or magical effects that were stopping people from uh like moving magically, so like
Oh.
teleportation didn't work. They were mindless undead, so you couldn't dominate them or charm them or what have you.
Right, but like
And
if he was like, "Oh, I'm going to lure them into a ravine," that would work because
sure,
they're
yeah.
just going to follow. Yeah, I see what you're
Right,
saying.
yeah. So, like, had there been an opportunity, or had he tried something that I hadn't prepared for, I'm like, okay, this could have worked. But mechanically, I was trying to go for a fast way of generating a long-term combat. Like I wasn't looking at it in a way that it was like, oh, let's do round by round for 30 rounds of combat. I wanted them to feel like they were fighting these things for a lengthy amount of time. So I was basically treating it as a combination skill challenge and combat with my own bizarre mechanics. And I don't feel it was that the flow was right. Um, I have to like workshop it a little bit better, but I wanted to do something to give them that feel that it was a slog, and they had to be fighting for longer than the typical, 30-second combat, which could take 4 hours in the real
Yeah.
world. 30 seconds in
So we're
D&D is
trying to
like, okay.
get a 4 hour combat to feel like a regular D&D combat.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
the
and
Holy
and it
Grail.
and it it went like seven rounds around
Uh,
around the table, but I wasn't taking as a DM. I wasn't taking turns. Um, like not so much as like there. I wasn't making attack rolls. When it came to my spot around the table, we didn't even roll initiative. We literally just went around the table. Um, when it got to me, based off of, where things were, everybody was just taking damage. And part of that was they had a new person join the party who was a life cleric who said, he told me straight up, player to DM, look, the only thing I plan to do on combat is healing characters. And I know that his character was heavily spec'd out to be good at healing.
yeah.
So I'm just like, all right, I want to give that character an opportunity to really shine.
So
And legitimately,
here's a lot of damage for the rest of you, so this character can
so
shine.
and that is what it was. And it
Yeah.
literally, in that kind of situation, this character having that much life to give out there at a literally a 7-person, party, um, it was like, all right, this dude literally saved just about everyone's life at one point in time or another throughout the course of the combat. Uh, but the one player, Josh was like, all right, I got to do what my character does, and I'm like, all right, this sucks for.
Hmm.
So it was just it was tough,
That's
but
why your bard shouldn't dump their intelligence.
I mean, he was trying to
Hmm.
to be smart. It's just a handful of the spells that he chose I was aware of.
Yeah,
Not that he had chosen them, but like the Dimension Door.
yeah.
Him and my daughter's character both are playing bards, both had Dimension Door, and I'm like, no, I'm not letting you get out of this thing here, because that could create some problems. And you divide the party. Well, what happens if
There's already a
after
monster that
storm?
does that too. It's one of my favorites to use for that reason. The Canoloth,
uh
they're like these like demon hellish. I want to say dogs, but they don't really look like dogs, but they make you
I
think of
I
dogs.
I think they're more like squat toads than they are dogs.
Yeah, but they have
They
that
got the
dimensional
super.
anchor where it's
Mhm.
like anything within 30 feet of them, they can be like, nah, you're not going to teleport or dimension door or Missy Step or whatever the thing you think you're going to do. You're not doing that.
Yeah. So they these undead horde basically had something similar,
Yeah.
and as they tried to leave, uh the character, not only who cast the spell but the one he was pulling along, both had to make a con save. And uh you know one passed, one failed, and the one who failed was basically like, all right, you're taking damage and you're stuck.
Yeah. So I
So it was
guess well, I guess one of the tricky things too is like, what is the difference between a cryptid and a monster, right? Because the definition of a cryptid really is like, what is it, cryptology,
cryptozoology.
cryptozoology. It's kind of like a pseudoscience.
Well, I
And
mean, part of
uh,
it is you have to kind of examine, is this just a something that's made up, or like, is there enough people talking about it to really have it fall into, you know a cryptid? Or is this merely just an aberrant of an actual animal that already exists? The cover of this Monsters and Mythical Creatures from Around the World is like one of the original, what do you call it, original makeups for what the Trask is. It's basically like a spiked turtle shell, a long dinosaurian tail, 6 legs, and like the head of a lion. So it's, I
Uh-huh.
don't know how well that's, coming
Oh yeah,
across
yeah.
up there.
Oh, now I know exactly
Um,
why you bought that book. It was probably just for that, just that image alone.
well, that image alone is cool. Um, and like that's what they say the Tarrasque originally looked like. Now I'd love to see a six-legged version of the Tarrasque. What kind of thing would that really do? Um, but you could certainly take those kind of things and say like, all right, let me turn it into something else. But
So
in order for something to be a cryptid in D&D and not have it just be like a regular monster, there's got to be a bit of a mystery to it. There's got to be some kind of special lore to it that is going to allow it to stand out.
yeah, I feel like very like if you're looking to introduce cryptids into your D&D game, I would say there's like very specific ones that I would look to. Um, and I would look to like the Jersey Devil because it's so rich in lore and it's a unique individual creature, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think that works really well. The Mothman is another one that kind of has that feel to it as well, as does the Dover Demon, which is that one's from Massachusetts and basically
And and not all that old, really. I mean, it's
yeah
the legend of that one started in 1977. It's a small humanoid figure with glowing eyes, tender-like fingers, and peach-colored skin.
yeah. Um, like I think those kind of things work better than a lot of the others, like the Yetis and the Sasquatch. I mean, they're already in D&D to begin with.
Right.
But I think they fit much more neatly into either the monster category or just a different D&D or species category.
But you could take some of these other things like and figure out like, all right, well, what kind of place would they have? So I would be remiss if I didn't pull up one that that came, and I'm certain this is going to evoke a little bit of laughter from Dave, because in Ohio there is the Loveland frog, and from this, like, I wouldn't say this is an individual. I would go so far as to be like, all right, I'm going to create a whole new species here. And it's said to be a humanoid frog or lizard-like creature. Sightings often described as an upright and having webbed hands and feet. Uh, so if I then would be like, well, let's try to turn this into a creature. So
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, you got a humanoid creature with the head of a frog, webbed hands and feet. Is known for its mischievous behavior, often appearing near bodies of water. Has the ability to summon minor illusions, control water, making it, a trickster, in encounters. So like, I I could put racial stats, on this, and in so doing, be like, all right, you've got a little bit of a chaotic race. Um, they're mischievous, but it doesn't say that they're evil. And maybe they're magically inclined. Maybe, do they, hail from the elemental plane of water? Are they cast-offs from there and have made their way to other planes? Or maybe they're from Planescape and have, moved elsewhere through, gateways and portals, and are, a new species that has come to your plane, and they're now looking to settle. So like, sometimes I feel like when you get into cryptids, there is so much lore and so much information that you can kind of play with, that it's like, how can I take this and have it be something that's new and unique to my world, but isn't just a something that's been around. So
Yeah.
like, you literally have to learn about it from it, because it's not in books. It's not anything that anyone else knows about. And sometimes that utterly baffles players when like, oh, can I make a history check, or can I make a this check? And you just say no. Like, what do you mean no? Like, why can't I have known something about this? It's like, well, that opportunity doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, and I I love that shit. I love getting those exasperated looks, you know. And sometimes the players are smart enough to understand, like, oh crap, I need to learn about it from it. So let me get into this. And other times, like, I just, I get that seething player, like, frustrated that, you know, I spoiled their coffee or something.
It's funny you use that example because there's like I can think of like three frog races for D&D.
Well, sure, and there are
Mm.
plenty of frog-like things that are out there between
But it makes
the
me wonder
gripply,
if
the
any of them
grung.
were inspired by that creature.
I would probably say the gripply were, um, you know, uh, but you've got gripply, you've got grung, you got bullywugs, and I'm certain there are more that are out there. Um, but you know, I just like I pulled up 10 different unusual cryptids,
Uh-huh.
and we've talked about most of them. um but it's a scenario where I'm like, all right, i I can't not mention frog stuff. And while my daughter is you know not unobsessed with frogs, her obsession is changed off to something else, but she still likes frogs, still still wants to incorporate them into the things that she does in the game. So therefore, whenever I'm doing something, I'm going to be like, all right, well, how can I get something frog related, you know, into this, or whatnot, just to talk about, just to kind of keep the bizarre tangent out there and alive.
Well, your daughter is, I think, responsible for the obscene amount of frog paraphernalia and magic items that have been created in the Nerdarchy verse.
Indeed. So if you have a problem out there with all of the frog stuff, I apologize, and I accept blame through the my offspring,
Through your spawn. So
my spawn,
we're
if you
at
will.
about the halfway mark. So it's at this point we should mention that Easy Roller Dice has been a sponsor of the channel for a very long time at this point, and we really appreciate them all they do for us. And also, they're offering you guys a 25% discount, one-time coupon code. It's down in the description. You can check that out and use that. They have tons of cool dice that you can check out. They're always adding new and fantastic dice to their repertoire. So do us a favor, take a look at those. Also, you'll find a link to our relaunch of our Zoo Mafia Kickstarter. We're not entirely sure when we're going to relaunch it, but it is going to happen at some point. So if you want to get in the know, so you can sign up for that when that happens. And we got like 60% of the way there, but couldn't quite cross the finish line. So we are re-examining the campaign, making some tweaks, and I think we figured out some solutions.
We're gonna make it work this time, and what have you. And this is normally where I step in and say, "Hey, it's the first Sunday of the month, and I'm gonna make some announcements." And I totally dropped the ball. I had a wonky day. Totally
Are you
forgot
announcing you
that
have no announcements to make today?
I'm announcing that I have an apology because I don't have the
Mm.
usual stuff. I will pull it tomorrow,
Mm.
and get those emails sent out, and then make it official next week. I apologize. Um, it
It's
dropped.
that time of
It took
year. Things are very busy and hectic. And also, we'll be back with our Blood Moon Rising game. Or
on
Blood. No,
Tuesday.
I just combined like three
Blood
different
moonshine.
games. Blood Moonshine will be returning Tuesday. It's been on a little bit of a hiatus between the holidays, and our illustrious zookeeper was ill last week, so it's hard to run a game without the person that runs it.
But Blood Moon Rising would be kind of fun to have our Zoo Mafia characters on the moon and Cipher system.
Yeah, yeah, I was totally putting together those two games.
I
uh,
knew where you drew your
yeah.
inspiration from. But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that as well. This Thursday, I should be back with MTD to start season 2 of our Kids on Bikes game, where our characters start the summer is over and it's now time to go to school
Are you
at
still a
Paradise
werewolf?
Academy. I am still a werewolf.
Hmm.
You know, there's craziness. I believe it's actually quite tangential to tonight's thing. Is I'm not technically a werewolf. I'm a cryptid over in Michigan because my character's abilities are based off of the Michigan Dogman.
Oh, okay.
So that is where that comes from. It's I'm really a teenage werewolf. It's it's there. Um,
uh,
my family's a werewolf. Me as Ted, I'm only slightly annoyed. My character is annoyed to no get out that I'm apparently related to the the bigwig family in the town,
uh,
and it's like, oh well, you don't have your old last name, you have this new last name that you now have to deal with, and this house that was previously known to be, oh, here's this house where terrifying murders took place and whatnot. It's like, no, that's my home now, and so I have no idea
the
what
the
the
murders just add ambiance to the place.
well, my whole family are werewolves. So like,
Yeah.
spoiler alerts, obviously, like there was a whole scene where we were seeing moments of our past, and like my mother literally had me as like a toddler on the floor. I was on the floor and I was apparently playing with intestines, and she makes this comment about like, oh, don't play with your food, Billy, and came over to like pick me up and what have you. And that was pretty horrific to kind of
Mm.
experience as a 15-year-old, seeing this happen. um so there's lots of craziness that goes on in this particular you know RP heavy game. So I'm looking forward to see what the next season
Probably not even the grossest thing a teenage boy gets up to, so it's all
so
good.
yeah, it's gonna be lots of fun. So if you want some regular cryptid behavior with talking rats and uh you know Michigan Dogman family, come check us out over on twitch.tv/mini terrain domain Thursday nights at 8:30. Then the
Sweet.
last thing is we are also looking to return to the old guard this month. We are hashing out a date. Right now, we are looking at, and I'm gonna pull up the calendar because I almost gave the same wrong dates that somebody else did in the chat. Right now, we're looking at the 19th of the 26th, so it's not going to be this Friday unless something drastically changes and happens in the next day or two. But we're looking at those particular dates for our next session, and that's another fantastic game here on the channel. So can't wait.
Sounds good. So back to cryptids. I'm trying to remember. I feel like I think I made the Jersey Devil and put it on D&D Beyond.
Is entirely possible.
Um,
I as someone who grew up loving aliens and UFOs, uh, you know, I found one that's referred to as the Flatwoods Monster,
uh-huh.
also known as the Braxton County Monster. It's a cryptid is associated with an alleged UFO sighting in Flatwoods, West Virginia in 1952. And the description includes a tall humanoid figure with glowing red face and claw-like hands. So I'm like, all right, if I were to kind of, turn this into, a D&D thing, what would that be? So I'm like, all right, it could be a towering figure, uh, with metallic skin, elongated hooded head, and, could have like glowing eyes or glowing like, runes or markings upon it. Um, yeah, and then its mere presence induces fear into those who witness it. With the possibility of having effects that distort or disorient any of its foes. I thought that could be kind of a cool way to extrapolate this thing. And then when you start talking about aliens and what have you, I'm like, oh well, is it possibly linked to Vargarians in some way? Like maybe these things could be their scouts, or maybe it has nothing to do with Vargarians and it doesn't really like walk around to get long distances. Maybe it teleports, so that's why it's not really seen for too long because it's like, oh, there it is. I'm like, nope, I'm out. And they just, they kind of just, jet. So maybe like you could have a whole thing where like you're trying to find one of these guys. And in order to properly examine it or catch it or kill it or whatever it is that you're trying to do, like you need to get some kind of like anti-teleportation, lockdown so that it can't just get away when it wants to leave.
You just need to get a counterlift.
Sure, but I don't think that's exactly an easy thing to just be like, well, let's haul in the local kennel.
Listen, they make great pets. So I put a link to the Jersey Devil on D&D Beyond Homebrew. Actually, there's a few people that did them over there. Although I believe most of them made theirs fiends, and ours is not a fiend because it didn't feel right for the Jersey Devil. We
There's a lot of times that people use demon or devil, when it comes to cryptids without any actual like true association to the hells. And while sure there is satanic references to the Jersey Devil, like we had good reason why we didn't have it be a fiend, and I I stand by that statement.
nice. So let's see. There was a comment. Oh, Seraph Sands. Seraph. Oh, I was wondering if you would mention the Jersey Devil. You're probably closer to its dwelling area than me. I live in the Pine Barrens, right? Like that's very close, but I am like right in the Pine Barrens, essentially, right on the edge.
And
Um,
I've camped, I've hiked, I've larped, everything that you can do, in those woods, the Pine Barrens, where all those myths come from. Yeah, I've done there, been that, whatever.
so
Been there, done that. That's the phrase.
now cryptids can be fun in D&D, but now in other RPGs, especially like modern RPGs, they are even more fun because they're more unique. It's more interesting. It's not just one monster amongst the world of monsters necessarily. And in our Monster of the Week game that we played, I began the campaign with the Jersey Devil and I ended it with the Jersey Devil. So that was a lot of fun. Matter of fact, I hold a little bit of a grudge against Ted to this day because he ran years and years ago. He ran a Dresden Files game, and he
Yeah,
and
I
he made it
know.
local, and never once did he bother to invoke the Jersey Devil. And I was so disappointed for like an urban
Well,
fantasy game.
all right. Well, we never number one, we never finished that game. We
Yeah.
we got we got to a spot and we're like, all right, we're moving on, as we had done so many times. Now, did I have anything in my plans? I don't think so. Um, but sure. And I take that and I apologize for the frustrations
I
of
forgive you,
not
Ted.
using that. Yeah, he said it publicly. Uh, but it's a scenario where, like, there's lots of things, and sometimes I get so engrossed in the ideas that I have that I don't think about, what could be done. And I know that, like, I have absolutely grown in the 10-15 years since we played that game as a GM.
Oh my god,
I
has it
would
been
do
that long?
things. It's Yeah, I mean, it was pre-Nerdarchy, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So it was more than 10 years ago.
that is scary.
Because we played with a guy I used to work with, and I think we played when I still worked there, which would have put it over 15 years ago.
Oh, that is crazy. So Seraph Sans Seraph says I'm in Jason Voorhees territory. So uh
I
I,
I think
I
that's that's a,
actually
that's
I think we should road trip up there sometime. Uh it's up in North Jersey. We could it's a couple hour drive probably, but I feel like we should maybe we'll do some kind of like Halloween specials one of these days.
Sure.
And we'll like do some we'll film from there or something.
Yeah, we
It'll
could always
it'll end with us both getting horribly murdered by machetes.
well, I mean, if we do it live streamed,
Yeah,
until YouTube shuts it down, I would bet it would get a lot of views.
we'll have to try that. Whatever it takes. You gotta suffer for your art. LARP it.
Um,
Now I'm actually wondering about the identity of Seraph Sans Seraph. Because they're up in North Jersey. I do know someone else that I've recently interacted with up in North Jersey,
mm,
who is a fan. So, nah, and all that local flavor stuff is super cool for using RPGs, and that's why I love modern RPGs so much. Like they're in some ways they're so much easier than running running a D&D game where you have to basically either use a pre-built world or build your own, where if you're playing in the real world all you got to do is like just take what's there and tweak it a little bit. Like you can pull up maps for places, layouts. Even in our Zoo Mafia game that we played, like I literally just found the map of a zoo that I really liked and
mhm.
used it, and it felt perfect for that particular scenario.
And that
uh,
that is the great aspect of that. And then you just have the ability to make whatever kind of tweaks and stuff that come your way or you inspire to do.
I mean,
I've been
literally in that game you guys would ask me like, can we research stuff online like in game, and I was like, you got your phones with you, right, or a computer in front of you. You can research it in real life, because a lot of the stuff that I would take was just literally Google Map images and like real locations.
mhm. That was like for the Monster of the Week game. I loved that stuff. I thought, that was a great game, and I was very sorry to see that was like, all right, we're planning this as a 12 session thing, and
Mm.
then it's over. I was ready to keep that game rolling for a while. Um,
Well,
you know,
maybe at some point we'll have to bring out some new agents of Pickle.
oh, I mean, I also liked the characters that we had.
Yeah.
I thought the party dynamic was a bit fun. Um, and the Monster of the Week system uh does have some of those things that are like, okay, let's instantly connect our characters together. So you've got a roll chart or a thing to kind of make a connection. Um and it's like, oh well, looks like my job is to protect that person, and I know a secret about that person, and this one over here knows something about me that nobody else does. Okay, well, this is kind of cool. Um so to have those kind of things, isn't anything that D&D has ever really tried to do. So you get a different feel at the table. um
I feel
but I mean,
like I feel like though people are sort of bringing more of that stuff into their D&D game, just because being experienced, something like, because a lot of that stuff is very system agnostic, really. Anyway, like,
mhm.
and it's what we do. It's kind of what we do in our session zeros now. Like maybe we don't have
Right.
a formula per se, but
But with some of the and this is not a slate on any of my friends, because I love all of my groups and everyone that I play with. It's a
except
genuine
for this one
privilege.
person, and you know who you
uh
are. Go ahead, Ted.
we don't have, like, while we have session zero and we make connections to the story, and sometimes players will link characters. I don't always feel like that there's ever a let me link every character together. And while, like, and I'm gonna jump to your Under the Dome game. While I love that party, you know, for me, like my character has been the hardest link to connect with each of the characters, just because it's like, all right, you've got melee character, melee character, artificer that's in charge, and the spellcaster over here, which is me, that's all about charisma. He doesn't really fit. And it wasn't until like I got the the helm of intellect and was put second in command that it's like, oh, okay, well, now they have to look to me every so often. And then we had a couple of sessions where like, all right, boss man's not around, all right, new boss, you're in charge. That I felt like that I fit better, character to character role playing. Otherwise, like, I felt like I'm in my own little island over here. I'm helping, I'm getting along, but I didn't feel like my puzzle piece fit in the group. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that was the oddball in that group, but that's okay. They
And
adopted
like
him
I said,
like a mascot, the weird mascot.
and I'm completely okay. Like, I'm
Uh,
loving the game and have loved all of it throughout. But the interconnectivity, didn't really start until like, a handful of sessions ago. And like now it's like, oh well, now we're approaching the end. And I'm like, crap.
yeah, it'll end eventually. I'm not sure when. Probably not as soon as I was thinking, because there's definitely things to wrap up. But we've been
Sure.
playing that game for going on 2 years now.
Has it really been that long?
Well, we did like 90 session 19 or 20 recently.
Oh shit. Shit.
Yeah.
I thought you said it was like session 13.
No, no,
But
no. We're
maybe.
definitely past 18.
All right. Well, that's pretty cool. I keep notes now on every single session for games that I run, so I always know what session we're on.
Yeah.
I've lost way too much stuff to, you know,
I'll
oh,
remember
switching
that.
laptops and
Yeah.
oh, no. I mean, I definitely don't rely on I'll remember that anymore. When I end a session, I will always take a few minutes and, jot down what I need to have. Sometimes mid-session I'll be doing it.
Yeah.
But I'll put a tag, okay, next session I'll put in, oh, session 13. This is where we start.
That's why Google
This is
Docs is so great, because doesn't matter if you switch computers, you're probably not going to, it's not a notebook that's going to be lost. It's
nope,
like
nope.
occasionally you find an old notebook and it's like discovering a musty old tome, in a forgotten library. You're like, what is this?
Yeah, I do all of my campaigns now through Google Docs. I sometimes have like multiple Google Docs. So like lately, I know this is off topic for cryptids and what have you, but I've been kind of fleshing out the deities of my campaign world, or our shared campaign world. Um, and I've been having a lot of fun, like, okay, trying to remember this deity that we created 25 years ago, or 23 years ago, whatever it was. Who the frick is this one here? And it would only be, Dave, Ryan, or myself that would have a clue. So some things I'm like, well, you know what, I don't think we've got anything here, so i'm gonna I'm just gonna make something up. And at some point in time, that might, I might run a game for Dave or Ryan, and I use a deity, and they're like, that name sounds familiar, but I don't remember this.
This seems wrong.
Um,
They definitely didn't
but
have a shark head.
but I'm definitely looking to, flesh it out. We used to have 30 gods, and like it was it. Like hardcore, we had it locked down tight, as close to uh an even split as you possibly could. So there's 9 different alignments. So like there was, I guess, one extra in one of them or something along those lines. Whatever the math works out to be. Um, 3, because it'd be 27. So there were 3 extras, and so there would be 4, 4, 4, and then the rest would have 3. So they were as evenly possible to distribute it across the alignments as they could be. And I'm like, that's it. there will be no more. And in my last campaign that I ran for our Philly group, the end of the campaign actually gave birth to um, the deity for hope and redemption. So we now have Tila or Tisla to get added into, the deity mix. I created a new one this morning that I, you know, I want to put in my games and see, who's gonna come up with what my inspiration was for this. So there's definitely a lot of fun that I've been having. Um, and then when if somebody decides to come into my game and they want to create a deity, like, hey, tell me about them. And if it doesn't fit what I've already got, new deities born in my world, bring them on. And I'm just
Let
gonna,
them
you
spawn.
know, let them spawn. And I have a reason for why there is a resurgence and what have you with all of these deities. Um, but I'm letting my imagination run. I said last week or a couple of weeks ago, whatever it was, that I'm out looking for work. So sometimes I need something to
Distract yourself.
distract myself with the negativity of job search not going well, and I'm like, all right, let's get out there and have some fun. And I've been having a lot of fun creating. So I know last year we did and talked about the Dungeon 23.
Mm.
So I'm doing some kind of, world building or thing creation, for my games or for whatever, every day, even if it's, making a single magical item. Um, I'm doing something, and I'm so far, today's only day 7, but I've been at it for, I don't know, well, definitely all 7 days, but I started it,
Yeah.
at the tail end of 2023. Um, and like I said, I'm enjoying the process.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny because Mike in the chat there is talking about researching his area and finding about a massacre. But the fact he mentions living in Florida, and I was like, you know what? I feel like Florida man or Florida woman might be its own cryptid.
That could very well be its own thing. I wouldn't put it past it. All
Scott
right, so we're
Walker,
down.
Scott Walker, have you boys been following along with the MCDM progress? Well, James Intercasso is actually in one of our Saturday night games because he's local to us. So
Right.
we're following along whether we want to or not. No, James is great, and I'm actually out of the whole OGL debacle. MCDM is the only one that is making something that I'm kind of interested in because all the rest are just like more D&D clones and knockoffs where it seems like they're going to do something interesting. I don't know if I like it, but at least it's different and it's not striving to just be another version of Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, I am certain that I'll be playing, at some point in time, a number of these OGL debacle offshoots. Um, just because they are out there, and I feel it is
Well,
my
so
duty.
in the
I
same
feel it's my
table,
duty. Sure.
I was just gonna say at the same table we got James from MCDM, but also
Uh,
Kim is from Cobalt Press. So at some point, they're probably each of them is probably going to run Tales of the Valiant and the MCDM game.
yep.
So
That's where I was going. I
uh,
feel it's my duty as part of Nerdarchy to experience these games and share our experiences with you guys out there, so that you've got the ability to kind of get our feedback. And that is a strong point. They're both going to be like, all right, we've got this game, let's do this.
yeah,
um and like I said, I'm here for it. We talked, you know uh, a while ago about our experiences back in April, and played a handful of new RPGs there. And you know, I really enjoyed the games that I played. So new gaming experiences, new game systems. You know, I feel they always bring something to the table that is either something that nobody else has done before, and it might be incorporated into the aspects of what I do, regardless of what system it is. And sometimes systems tell you what you don't want to see
Yeah.
and what things that you should avoid. And getting that feedback is fantastic. Not every game is for every single gamer. Like, heck, there's a reason why we have so many different editions of D&D, and why every edition that exists out there somebody feels is best. The
Yeah,
reason that
there's just like there's some games like I like playing sometimes, right? Like,
Mhm.
but I would be done with relatively fast.
Sure. And like, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about video game, board games, or RPGs. That's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, but that's my point. You have to
Uh,
play different games to figure that out. What you like,
yep.
what you don't like, to kind of add to what you're already saying there.
Right. So you find the group that wants to play the games that you like in the style that you like, and you have fun with it. It doesn't need to be a cryptid that's out there hiding behind the trees. Do what you like.
But it could be. With that, it is just past 9 o'clock, so we're gonna wrap things up. Come hang out with us Tuesday night as we roll some d6s and play uh, Blood Moonshine, Zoo Mafia. That's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll be back here next Sunday doing the same thing again. And at some point, Ted is running a game, or Ted is involved in the game Old Guard, a 5e D&D game about a bunch of old geezers that get back together or something.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. And so far we've seen, Jake yelling at me because I made some bad mistakes, and his barbarian doesn't get angry, he just gets disappointed. It's pretty fun.
Great. With that, until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.